going to exhibit and cause a pain response, much like we've discussed with other injuries to her back?
Yes.
Would this injury in any way cause a faster or more rapid loss of consciousness?
If we are talking about cumulative blood loss, perhaps we are approaching unconsciousness at some point in time. But in and of itself, this injury would not render anybody unconscious.
Painful, though.
Yes.
Sorry, I meant to keep this up here for you. Go back to, now we're going to talk about stab wound 13, which is label 14. Same thing with this injury. What are we seeing in response to this injury for pain and associated injury?
Deep penetrating wound, as we discussed before, surface pain, as well as a deeper throbbing pain from internal structures, the soft tissue and the muscles, and then compounded with your loss of mechanical movement because of the injury to the muscles.
Does this injury further limit the movement and mobility of her left arm?
Yes.
Now let's talk about stab wound 14, 57Q, label 15. In this photograph, are we able to see the trajectory of that injury?
Yes.
Now, earlier we had talked about that injury and it being one of the last injuries that was inflicted. And what were the reasons why that's your opinion?
We don't see much hemorrhage, or what we refer to as vital response, within that injury as compared with the others. So I tended to place that later in the series of injuries, closer to the time of her death rather than one of the initial injuries.
Can you say if she was alive at the time that injury was inflicted?
No.
Is there a chance that she had in fact passed away at the time that that injury was inflicted?
Yes.
I'm going to group 16 and 18, stab wound 15 and 18 together. So left tricep starting at her elbow and left fingers. And I'll show both those photos at the same time. I'm looking at 57R and then 57T. Are these injuries consistent with Ms. Cabrejo Molina seeing and perceiving the weapon?
Yes.
What would be the physical position of Ms. Cabrejo Molina's arm to create stab wound 15, what we see here on the left?
Her arm would have to be lifted with her elbow pointing towards the assailant, and therefore the weapon going directly into the tissues, and this would be consistent with an attempt to try to shield her face or body from an oncoming attack.
What psychological responses or feelings would be present if she saw and knew that there was a weapon coming towards her body?
This is a fear response. This is, I think, at this point, understanding mortal intent or mortal injury.
Objection. Same as before. Same rule, thank you.
For sake of discussion, let's say that this is one of the last wounds inflicted. I know that that's not your opinion, but for sake of discussion. Even if this is one of the last wounds that's inflicted, do the manner, the type, the location of these injuries suggest she was still able to perceive the weapon?
Yes.
Now let's move on to stab wound 16 and 17. These are going to be the two injuries to her left hip and left lower back. Did I say 16 or 17 or 17 or 18? Should be 16, stab wound 16 and 17. 57U. And now we're focused on those two injuries. Are these injuries going to damage internal structures and organs?
We have more intestinal damage, blood and fecal material within the abdominal cavity, and as well as damage within the abdominal cavity, the retroperitoneum and the psoas muscle, which controls your core muscle structures.
Damage to the psoas muscles will result in limited mobility
Yes,
of what extremities?
your legs.
Is there going to be pain associated with now trying to move the legs?
Yes, and it is a core muscle, so even standing up straight or straightening your back or moving in any direction, really, it flexes the psoas muscle, and injury to the psoas muscle would result in significant pain.
With your testimony earlier that these injuries are consistent with being inflicted earlier in time, is there going to be a heightened level of pain associated with each of these injuries?
As they are, they show a brisk vital response and will be probably in the first set of injuries rather than the last set of injuries. I believe that because she is more intact, less blood loss, there is a possibility to have a more robust pain or vital reaction to these wounds than perhaps later within the attack.
If she is moving from one location to another after having sustained stab wound 16 and stab wound 17, is there also going to be limited mobility
Yes.
and pain associated not with the injury itself, but with the actual movement and attempted use of the...
It's the same reference.
If she's getting up and moving, is she going to be in pain?
Yes.
Is that pain going to be associated with the injury to the muscles?
Objection, leading the witness. Overruled. Can I answer?
Yes, movement of those muscle groups that are injured will cause pain.
Is that movement and that pain different and separate than the pain from the other structures that are damaged internally?
Continually trying to attempt to move those muscles will continue to result in additional pain. Typically, we try to immobilize something that's injured rather than continue to use it.
Would any of Ms. Cabrejo Molina's wounds have prevented her from seeing, hearing, or perceiving her surroundings?
No.
Would she have experienced any relief from pain or emotional distress at any time before she loses consciousness?
No.
And despite the injuries that she received, was she capable of being aware of her impending death?
Yes.
Now let's talk about Ms. Mariana Molina's injuries, Mariana Cabrejo's injuries. Before we get into those, I want to discuss with you some of the training that you have as it applies to children instead of to adults. As part of your medical training and education, did you study the effects of trauma and injuries on children?
Yes.
Is there a difference between children and adults when it comes to trauma and injury responses?
Yes. Children do not have the same coping skills or ability to manage their pain responses the way an adult can. A child may have a very like a hyperactive response to just falling and skinning their knee, where an adult might fall and might grimace and then move on. It is within, they have not reached the level of maturity that their brain can categorize and evaluate the injuries to their body in a more controlled manner. So they can respond much more intensely to pain than an adult can.
For the purpose of your testimony today, when we're talking about a 14-year-old, is that individual going to be more childlike or more adult-like in some of their responses?
So,
Objection. What's the objection?
Same. Second approach, please.
All right, Dr. Webb, let's back up just a little bit. When we're referring to children, what age group are you referring to?
in what context are you asking that question?
Sure, let's start with physical development. Is there going to, and I'll ask a follow-up question. When we're talking about physical development of a child, are there going to be stages within the child range that kids are going to be categorized into?
Yes, typically, starting around the ages of 10 to 13, we have, we don't refer to them as children any longer, we will say adolescents, because they, on a spectrum, they have reached a certain level of maturity, and physically they become closer to their adult form than to their child form.
Now, when we're talking about developmentally for emotional and maturity type of discussions, when you're talking about a child, are you still giving a range within children?
So we don't, medically, the brain does not reach adult form until probably within the early 20s. And so a 14-year-old that may look physically more like their adult shape is still within the brain structure more of a child than an adult.
So when we're looking at a 14-year-old's ability to experience and understand injury, trauma, is that going to be the same as it would be for an adult with a fully formed brain, or is it going to be something other than that?
It's not going to be the same as an adult because she is not an adult.
Now, we're not talking about comparing her to a toddler now, are we?
No,
Is there going to be a sliding scale or a spectrum within there?
of course. So, again, adolescent, not an adult, and not a baby and not a child. So it's not going to be the same as an adult, but it's also not the same as just like a 5-year-old or a child.
So let's talk specifically about a 14-year-old. Does a 14-year-old's ability to perceive and understand pain compare to that of an adult with a fully formed brain?
Objection, ask and answer.
Verbal.
No,
And how is it different?
I can't say precisely. It's a little bit outside my field to be very precise about this, but it is not the control and the development of the limbic system, which is the area of the brain that controls emotion, is just not fully developed. We know adolescents have a more emotional response. They don't have a controlled emotional response where an adult may. Therefore, it's just not the same as an adult.
In children, so younger than adult age, younger than fully formed brain, are we seeing a heightened trauma and fear response?
Objection, leading the witness. And the same objection regarding subject matter.
Same ruling as subject matter, sustained as to leading the witness.
When we're talking about emotional distress in children, explain the response in a 14-year-old.
There's going to be a more hyper-emotional response rather than an adult response, which would be more mediated within the brain, within the limbic system. So it's going to just be it's going to be different than an adult.
Recognizing Mariana's age, at that age, does she have the ability to comprehend her mother's predicament?
Yes, she does.
Objection, any approach, please?
No.
Did the witness answer my last
He
one?
did not. You may need to restate or rephrase the question. We can have it right back.
Continuing objection.
Understood. Objection is on the record.
Would Mariana understand her mother was being injured in the predicament?
Yes.
As a 14-year-old, is she capable of understanding and experiencing a full range of emotions similar to that of an adult?
Yes.
Is it going to be a slightly different emotional threshold for a
Objection.
child?
Leading the witness.
Sustained rephrase.
How would it be different?
Again, I think the mechanism is because she has a not fully developed limbic system. Therefore, her emotional responses will be more dramatic and immediate rather than what an adult would experience, which would be more mediated and more considerate of circumstances.
Is she capable of recognizing fear,
Yes.
panic,
Yes.
worry?
Yes.
Is she capable of grasping the consequence of actions?
Yes.
And is she capable of understanding her own mortality?
Yes.
Objection.
What's the legal objection?
Context.
Overruled. Not, also not a legal objection. Next one.
Let's talk
Relevance.
Let's
Answer
talk,
remains. Next question.
let's talk about the specific injuries. And let's start with stab wound 1, which is going to be the stab wound to her chest. Will you talk about the structures within her chest that are struck by this injury?
We have the skin, the soft tissue, the ribs, going through the ribs, not only going through the rib body itself, but also through the intercostal spaces and directly into the lungs, into the lung on the right side, upper and lower lobe.
With an injury to the lung, are we going to see additional responses from the body that impact her ability to maintain some of her functions?
The lung will collapse. The lung is like a very complex balloon that needs to inflate and deflate and move both blood and air through it in order to create exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. When there is a perforation through the lung, the air that comes into the lung escapes through that cut into the lung, and it gets into the open chest. And as you continue to try to breathe, the air will go into the lung and then escape into your chest cavity, further creating this pressure against the lung, causing it to collapse even further. It renders, so then you have air, you have blood collecting within the chest, you have a lung that is no longer functional and not able to exchange carbon dioxide and oxygen, and you have an increasing pressure that's building within the chest cavity. You are left with you have one left lung that's functional, and therefore the total respiratory capacity becomes half.
Describe what the pain level would be for this injury and all of the associated cascading effects from this injury.
This would result in the pain in the chest, as we described before, the pain of the surface skin, the duller, aching pain and intense pain of the chest wall and the pleural membrane. The lung itself, again, doesn't necessarily have any pain receptors. However, the building of blood and air within the lung has its own set of discomforts because this is pressure, and now it's going to be not only collapsing that lung, but starting to push on the structures of the heart and the left side. So as she continues to try to breathe and with respiratory distress, you would try to breathe more rapidly. More air is going to be lost into the chest, more pressure, more collapse. And so it just kind of builds upon itself very quickly.
Would she remain conscious after this injury?
Yes,
Would she still be capable of seeing, hearing, moving, and walking,
yes,
perceiving her surroundings?
yes.
Now let's talk about the stab wound to the back left arm. States Exhibit 55M. When we're talking about this injury, is she capable, even if she's already received the stab wound to the chest, of perceiving any weapon or any injuries that she may sustain?
Yes,
Is this injury consistent with the knife being behind her?
I'm unsure about the position of the knife per se in this injury. It could have, because the arm can move both to be in front of her or be held back against her body, it could happen in a variety of positions.
And is this injury consistent with a knife or her arm moving at the time that the injury is inflicted?
Most likely both.
Is there going to be a pain level associated with that injury?
It will be an intense pain, both from the surface, subcutaneous tissue, and muscles of the tricep being damaged, causing the aching pain of muscle injury, as well as the mechanical limitations upon her arm.
Now let's talk about the 2 stab wounds to her back. This is going to be 55P. I want to first address the upper back stab wound, and then we'll talk about the lower back stab wound. When we're looking at this upper back injury, is this injury alone a fatal injury?
No,
Would there be a significant pain associated with this injury?
this would be a painful injury. This might not be as painful as what we discussed prior, like to the face, to the neck. This is the area of the back, so the surface of the back itself has a less dense nerve response, so the skin itself might not be as painful as if it were in a different location, maybe on the hand. However, this is still painful. You're still going to have rapid bleeding, and it is also damaging underlying muscle tissues of the back, which is a core muscle, and therefore would create more pain with movement.
Does this injury limit her range and mobility?
Yes.
Oh, I meant to keep this picture up here. I'll go back to 55P. Now we're going to talk about the stab wound to her lower back. What internal, start at the skin and then explain that and then work your way in, if you will, please.
This injury hits a variety of different organ systems. We have the skin, the soft tissue, then the muscles of the back, and then going into the abdominal cavity. It comes in contact with the with the kidney. We have that avulsion injury of the kidney where the kidney gets split. A slice of the kidney gets removed from the body of the kidney. The kidney has around it a capsule that has a nerve response. The kidney itself does not have pain receptors, but the surrounding area does. And then going through the kidney goes and hits the liver, through the liver entirely, and then on the anterior chest or the front of the chest on the lower right side, hitting the ribs.
Is there a pain response from the liver injury?
There is not. It would be more of a response to the blood being in the abdominal cavity, and it would cause like a deferred pain or a non-localized pain that would be more generalized to the abdominal region, not the liver specifically.
If this was one of the last injuries, would she still be conscious for this injury?
Yes.
Would she still be able to perceive her surroundings
Yes.
and perceive the pain associated with all of her injuries?
Yes.
Is there going to be a combined effect or combined pain that is greater than the individual pain associated with each injury?
As you include more nerve tissue, more branches of different nerves, you increase the potential of having a greater response and more pain receptors being involved. So yes, there is the potential for having a cumulative effect where each injury adds to the whole and the intensity of the response.
Dr. Webb, as part of your work, were you provided with a portion of a body-worn camera to review in your work in this case?
Yes,
And is that a body-worn camera that is from the initial responding officers, as far as you can tell from the video?
yes,
Did you have an opportunity to view it?
I did.
Were you able to make observations from that video that assist you with your opinion on specific matters in this case?
Yes.
Now, before we play that video, I'd like to talk through some of the things that you're able to see in that video.
Continuing objection.
The objection or
Describe what is first observed on that video and how that information assists you in your opinion. You want me to ask it to you a little bit different way?
Yes.
When Mariana is turned over by patrol, are you able to see on that video when she is turned over?
Yes.
Speaking specifically to her face, are you able to make observations about her face that give you information to assist you with your opinion?
Yes. So within the video, first responders come to the aid of the decedent. They flip her over in order to render aid, and at that time you can see clearly that Mariana is still alive.
What do you see in that video that helps you reach that ultimate conclusion?
She is exhibiting agonal breathing. Her mouth is moving. She is blinking, and her eyes are moving. As the video progresses, you can see that she has some purposeful movement of her extremities.
So let's talk. So does law enforcement move her to a different location within the front area of the apartment?
Yes, they do.
After moving her, is medical equipment applied to assist in life-saving measures?
Yes.
When you're talking about these purposeful movements, describe what you're referring to and kind of how the sequence lines up with this medical equipment.
So she is in a agonal state. Agonal meaning very close to death, and she has a mask applied to her face to deliver oxygen, and her reflex response or her intention is to reach for the mask. That is a directed movement. It's a localized. It's being able to localize a stimuli. She knew there was something on her face, and she was able to reach for her face. That confirms that there is some consciousness awareness still intact within the decedent.
Now, you've had an opportunity to review this video. Let's talk about some of your training. What does the Glasgow Coma scale mean?
So this is a Glasgow Coma scale is for a trauma response. So individuals who have suffered an injury can be very quickly evaluated, and emergency care providers can then determine what level of care they need to give immediately. So it's something that can be done very quickly. And so therefore it's very basic. This is not a highly sophisticated tool, but it's something that all medical professionals are familiar with. It is broken up into three main categories: eyes or eye movement, verbalization, and motor activity. Motor being able to move your extremities. Each category gets a certain number of points. For eyes, you have the maximum of 4 points. For verbal, 5 points. For motor, a maximum of 6 points. For a total score of you and I and everybody in this room of 15, meaning that we are conscious, we are aware of our surroundings, and we are aware of ourselves. The lowest score you can have is 3. You can have a 1 point in each category. What they say a GCS score of 3 is clinically unresponsive. Anything below an 8 is considered, severe. Anything between I believe a 9 and a 12 is considered in the moderate range, and 13 to 15 is mild injury. The way this is used is anything below 8, they know immediately to place a tube within the airway, because that individual may lose their ability to protect their airway at any time. When you lose consciousness, you lose that ability to control your airway, and therefore you can become a risk, and therefore they need to control your ability to breathe.
How are you applying your training regarding the Glasgow Coma Scale to what you're seeing in that video to render your ultimate opinion?
So, obviously we couldn't be there. I couldn't be there to give her a full battery of tests to check for her level of awareness. What we are limited to is what we can see within the video. Her ability to even spontaneously blink or move her eyes gives her at least 2 to 3 points. She never does any vocalization within the video, so we can't give her any points there. But then directed movement of her arm to the stimulus on her face, that is not only an extension, a flexion, but also flexion directly towards where the stimulus is on her body. That immediately gives her 5 points on that scale. So we know that on the spectrum of consciousness that can be evaluated with this very simple battery of observations, she's obviously not deceased. She is obviously not unconscious. Now, the extent of her consciousness is unknown. However, she has some. Is she completely, fully intact and aware? I don't know. However, I think that there's evidence here to say that there is a possibility that she is completely intact and aware.
And I'd ask to publish State's Exhibit 2.
You may. Please ensure that no videos or photographs are taken of this video. Thank you.
Somewhere else, we have no idea, unannounced. This is the one same one there.
You got ammo bag. Let me have an ammo bag.
And another one with the cigarette.
Just give me the ammo bag. She needs oxygen. Just give me the ammo bag. Move it. Somewhere it's nice and clean. Right back here. Just give it oxygen, right?
You got the one food there.
You got one in the back.
Is there one in the back?
There's one in the back, yeah. Just give her oxygen. Here, it's done. There you go. So make her breathe.
Yep.
There you go. There you go, man. Just keep her breathing. Just help her breathe.
We got you.
Let me go look at the other one.
You go, yeah.
Come on, baby girl.
You got
Yeah,
it.
keep breathing, okay?
We
Breathe
got
for
it.
me.
Fire's on the way, that's good.
Breathe for me.
Good.
Pass the witness.
Cross.
Good afternoon, Dr. Wood.
Good afternoon.
Can you define consciousness for the jury, please?
Medically, consciousness is described as awareness of your environment as well as awareness of yourself.
Okay. Could it be simplified into just the ability to lay down memory?
I don't know.
Now, you told the jury that it's possible that Mariana is intact consciously.
It's possible.
Okay. Now, when you say that she's intact consciously, are you saying that it's possible that she's aware of her surroundings,
Yes,
aware that she's being treated by the police?
yes,
All right. So all those things that we see in the video, you allow for the possibility that Mariana was acutely aware of everything going on there.
yes, I think it's possible.
All right. Now, when you talk about possibilities, is your medical opinion that something is simply possible, but not that it's a fact? So you're
Right.
not saying that it's
I
a...
think it would be difficult to say with certainty what she was able to feel at that moment.
And when we talk about these certainties, you're talking about a reasonable degree of medical certainty as the standard for offering an opinion.
Yes,
All right, so what you're saying then, if we were to put all those things together, you can testify to a reasonable degree of medical certainty of a possibility.
yes. That means that the physiology would support that finding.
In other words, you don't know whether or not she is aware of what's taking place around her.
Right, I can't know.
Right. So really, when we talk about it's possible, what we're saying is we don't know.
Well, what I'm saying is that there are features within the video that support consciousness or some level of consciousness, and therefore the possibility of the nervous system still being intact.
And when we talk about all the other possibilities, that we're talking about things that are equally acceptable within your field or equally viable, that all of your knowledge and your training experience accept those possibilities as well, one of which is that her responses are reflexive.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking really about two. We're talking about two possibilities. One, whether she can sense her environment or she can't. I think there's no evidence within this video that says that she cannot. But I don't know if she can or cannot. The difference between is the limiting and saying that it is impossible for her to have consciousness or awareness. I don't think there's any evidence to make that statement.
The evidence that you have in the video does not permit you to say how long after the injuries were inflicted she may have lost sensation.
Could you ask your question again?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
You testified earlier on in the trial that you, in your opinion, Mariana died at the scene.
Yes.
You don't know how long after that, the moments we see in the video, you don't know how long after that she died.
So I watched this video very closely, and at the point where we stopped the video, I don't see any other signs that I could say are either purposeful movement or anything else outside of where we stopped that video. So, so that leads me to believe that she died at the scene there. Just whether at that time where we stopped the video or very close to that time, it's difficult to say because the first responders are, they are obstructing the view of what's happening and our ability to look to see her responses to any of it. But I don't see anything after what we just saw where I could say it looked like consciousness.
You did not hear her at any point make an utterance or a sound.
No.
She was being given verbal stimuli as well as physical stimuli.
Yes.
you can't tell the jury to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether or not the physical responses that you witnessed in the video were in response to any sort of verbal stimuli or physical stimuli.
Right, correct. I can.
It is just a theory that she may have been responding to the mask or the resuscitation tool that they put on her face. She may have just been responding subconsciously to that as some kind of irritant, the way somebody might react if their nose was pinched while they're sleeping.
Right, and what you are referring to is the difference between a brainstem response, something that's reflexive, versus something that is a cerebrum response, which would be more intact with like a conscious response. Based on what we are left to view, I agree with you that it's limited data. We have a very limited data set to make that determination. Therefore, that's why I'm restricting my opinion to say that it's possible, and it would be, I think, extremely difficult to make a definitive judgment based on how much information we have.
And allowing for the possibility that by the time we reach 9/11 in the video, allowing for the possibility that she may have already lost sensation for any number of reasons, whether it's hypotensive shock, right? And that's something that you allow for, obviously, here because of the severe blood loss.
Yeah, hypovolemic shock, yes.
Hypovolemic, okay. And then there is also hypotensive shock, yes?
Yes.
All right. So can you explain those two things to the jury, please?
Yeah, one it refers to the volume of blood. As you continue to lose blood, your blood carries oxygen, you lose oxygen, and therefore you pass away. The other is hypotensive, meaning that it is a nervous response where your vessels become hyperdilated in order to facilitate the movement of blood. But your body doesn't know that blood is leaking out. It's not like that there's blood and it's just not moving around. But what your body is trying to do is make the pathways for the blood as free and unrestricted as possible so the blood can move quickly. What that does is, imagine if you have a glass of water that's very full and then you pour that glass into a huge bowl. Suddenly the glass only fills that bowl just at the bottom. And so it's like you have no blood at all. Suddenly all your blood becomes just this little trickle in the vessels. So that's hypotensive. So when that occurs, a great analogy would be you could stand up very quickly, your blood pressure drops, and then you become super faint. You didn't lose your blood. What happened was your vessels dilated, or your vessels, it's actually the opposite. Your vessels didn't constrict to allow you to maintain blood into your brain, and there you fall unconscious. So they go hand in hand, hypovolemic and hypotensive.
And you allow that she is experiencing both of those things?
She can, yes.
And because you saw the blood loss at the scene?
Yes.
And there was also an accumulation of blood internally?
Yes.
All right, so she has it in places where it shouldn't be inside of her, and obviously it shouldn't be outside of her, and that's where you have all this blood, right?
That's right.
And that is blood that would normally carry oxygen to the brain.
Correct.
So, as well as the nerves, right? The central nervous system
Yeah.
would require that blood in order to process proper responses.
Yes.
All right, so here, it's safe to say that just based on what you can observe in the video, she is very likely experiencing a severe loss of sensation, as well as a very limited ability, if any ability, to process information.
It's possible, yes.
And part of that information that she wouldn't be able to process would be her own impending death.
I don't know.
And you have no idea where all those abilities would have faded away
I
between
think
8:48
we could say, you know, it happened pretty much close to the end of that video, definitively. Where,
Definitively, because that would
Yes.
be death.
Yeah, it's death, yes,
Right.
that's definitive.
But as long as her heart is beating, you don't know when, between 8:48, when 911 was called, and 9:11, when all of those abilities and functions no longer existed.
Right, it would be very difficult for me to make that judgment.
Thank you. No further questions.
Can you redirect?
No redirect.
All right, thank you, Doctor. You are free to step down.
He's released.
You are released. State any additional witnesses.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Approach. All right, state you have no additional witnesses, is that correct?
Correct, Your Honor. At this time, the state will rest.
All right, members of the jury, with the state resting, this will be a great time for lunch. I am going to give you a little range to report back between 2 and 2:15. If you can be back between 2 and 2:15, that should give you an opportunity to have a long, hopefully nourishing lunch. And remember the prohibition about discussing the case or doing research about the case applies during lunch. Thank you so much.
All rise for the jurors.
All right, thank you. Jury's out, you may be seated. All right, with the state resting, defense motions.
Sir?
Motion.
Defense would move for a directed verdict of not proven with respect to the avoiding arrest aggravator. Could I have a second, please? Defense would cite to Zach versus State 753 Southern Second, 753 Southern Second, 9.
Just, do you have a copy of that or did you provide it to the board? Do you know?
The avoiding arrest aggravator requires very strong proof that the dominant motive for the killing was witness elimination. The evidence must support a finding that the victim would have summoned the authorities or where a defendant expressed an apprehension regarding arrest. Here, evidence that Mariana died as a result of Ojeda Salazar's desire or motive to eliminate a witness is simply not present. The mere fact that Mariana could have identified Jean-Pierre Ojeda Salazar to the police is not enough. There must be something in addition to her ability to identify him, some either expression, some act on his part that would definitively state that the witness is being eliminated because she's a witness. Now, although it was not necessary for Jean-Pierre Ojeda Salazar to kill Mariana in order to effect his escape, that does not mean that in some way he was killing her in order to make it easier, in order to avoid prosecution, in order to affect in any way his escape from the scene. Now also I would cite to Calhoun versus State, which is 138 Southern 3rd 350. That's a Florida case, 2013, Florida Supreme Court. In both Zach and Calhoun, the avoiding arrest aggravator was not supported. Simply making efforts, fleeing the jurisdiction after the killings is not evidence the killings were motivated by hopes to avoid arrest. The avoiding arrest aggravator applies when the capital felony was committed for the purpose of avoiding or preventing a lawful arrest or effecting an escape from custody and focuses on the motivation for the homicide. Where the victim is not a police officer, the evidence supporting this aggravator must prove that the sole or dominant motive for the killing was to eliminate a witness. Mere speculation on the part of the state that witness elimination was the dominant motive behind a murder cannot support the aggravator. The questions that and concerns that may come up in deciding whether or not it's been proven would be, could the victims identify the defendant? That alone is insufficient. Further evidence to consider is whether gloves were used, a mask worn, statements as to motive, the fact that the victims resisted or were confined in some way, or in a position to pose a threat to the accused. Here, we know for a fact that Mr. Ojeda Salazar left the scene while Mariana was still alive. He did nothing, there is no indication that he ever did anything to confirm that her injuries were fatal. He had no way of knowing that her injuries were fatal. There's no evidence that he said, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to eliminate you, you can identify me. Now the state may try to rebut this in some way by talking about his efforts to get the attention or recall in some way Diana Calderon back to the scene. But we don't know what that is. That's an assumption on the part of the state that in some way he was calling her back with some sort of violent motive. We don't know that. All we know is that when he left the apartment, Mariana was still alive. He didn't in any way confirm that she was alive in the sense that he was going to kill her or he was going to stab her again. All we know is that he inflicted the injuries on her without knowing whether or not there was a fatal effect, and then he left. So here, witness elimination doesn't work. Witness elimination doesn't make any sense, and it's not logically supported by the evidence. If for no reason than the fact that he left when she was alive, made no statements that her death was in furtherance of some kind of avoiding arrest, didn't wear a mask, she's not a police officer. The only evidence the state has that death was in furtherance of avoiding arrest is the fact that she could identify him. There is no other evidence to support the aggravating factor. And as Calhoun and Zach state and make clear again and again, that alone is insufficient. Thank you.
Yes, she could identify him, but the show what his motive is and what his intentions are. He is attacking Paula. It is then that he turns and attacks Mariana when she tries to intervene. The evidence is very clear from the scene. Mariana is stabbed in the bedroom. She makes it to the front door. The cast-off blood on the baseboards and on the wall at the ground level, her position, the upper back and lower back injuries being positioned right in front of where that cast-off is, supports that she is down on the ground, close to the front door. She is stabbed twice there while she's down on the ground. And this is after Diana has already run outside. The defendant has gone out there after her. He has vocalized what his intention is. She needs to come back to the apartment. He then returns back to the apartment. Mariana's on the ground. He kills her there. He leaves her for dead because he can't find Diane. And it's the totality of these circumstances that show what his actions are, what his motives are. And this is far beyond just evidence to say that, well, she can identify him. He has taken additional steps throughout all of this to eliminate someone who saw what happened and her movements to get away from him and chasing her down to kill her after telling the third witness she needs to come back.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to read those cases. I'll reserve ruling on this till we come back to. I'll let you know right when I walk back in. Okay.
One thing that I thought about that I want to just bring to the court's attention so that we can address it with the jury, if defense isn't going to finish their case until tomorrow, the jury may have to be sequestered tomorrow. I know that we didn't tell them to bring anything with them today, but I wanted to.
We have discussed this.
No, telling them not sequestration, telling them to bring a bag with them. I wanted to put that on the court's radar, that we haven't told them that they would need to bring an overnight bag with them.
I'll have a final answer for the court when we return from lunch. I may not be calling that witness for tomorrow, so I'll have an answer for the court when I get back.
That's it. So maybe this court wasn't clear, but what I was asking repeatedly last week, because now every bailiff in this courtroom is standing up, is when we got to this phase, if defense was potentially, not potentially, was going to waive sequestration, the answer was yes.
We're not asking for sequestration. I thought that was coming from the state. She's not speaking on behalf of the defense.
Okay.
I'm just letting the court know that I may not have another witness for tomorrow,
Okay.
and I'll let you know at lunchtime.
So now I'm back to the state. Defense is not asking for sequestration. Is the state asking for sequestration?
No, my understanding was defense was waiving sequestration for guilt phase only, that
No.
it would be for penalty phase. Okay,
No.
now I understand.
That's, and again, I'll take responsibility for this because I know there's a lot going on, but I had the higher ups in the sheriff's office saying, we need to make arrangements this week. So the record is clear. State's not asking for sequestration. Defense is waiving sequestration as it relates to the guilt phase, correct?
That isn't
I'm
changed.
sorry, as it relates to the penalty phase, correct?
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. They do not need a bag.
Okay, that's what I want to
So-
make sure. Thank you.
Now, what I'm being told, and thank you, Mr. Kane, for letting me know that, is there may not be a witness tomorrow. If there is not a witness tomorrow, I'm going to let you all discuss what you want to do. Because what I'm hearing is, we're gonna have a witness at 2 o'clock, around about 2 or 2:15. And you said that someone is getting off the train at 3:30?
Assuming it's still on time, I believe it is, right?
If they're getting off the train at 3:30, that means that best case scenario, I know the train is very close, but we're beginning that testimony at 3:45. How long do you anticipate that testimony would be?
45 minutes.
So everyone may have rested at 5 o'clock. So the question is, I think I know the answer, but I want to make sure, is what would you all want the court to do at that point? Move into closings and instructions and send them out tonight, or closings and instructions tomorrow? And send them out first thing in the morning?
Option one.
Maybe.
I'll defer to the court.
Okay. so defense's preference is to get this case to them tonight and let them begin deliberating, correct?
If it's decided we don't have a witness.
If it's decided you
But I'll know for sure after
Okay.
lunch, yes.